Hey, what's up everybody, and welcome back to News Dose. So Xbox is finally getting into the handheld console market, though maybe not quite the way that some were expecting. This is a little bit different, but still, it's interesting all the same. A new unique handheld console that takes advantage of Xbox has officially been announced, so we're going to talk about that today and some of the good things that can come from this, and also some of the drawbacks. Also, Nintendo has been very active this week, and that also means crushing your dreams and shutting down rumors. You know, for all of those fans out there that's been hoping for a brand new Switch console, because I guess we just can't completely rid the world of Switch Pro rumors, well, Nintendo reportedly responded, so we'll talk about that one as well. So it should be a pretty fun day overall, but if you want this type of fun every weekday, make sure to hit that subscribe button below, plus go ahead and join the notification gang by hitting that not so shiny bell button below. That way every time I post a video, which is practically every day, you'll be one of the first to get the chance to watch it yourself. To get started today though, Square Enix finally officially announced Tactics Ogre Reborn. You know, this game leaked like a gazillion times this year, so this doesn't really come off as a major surprise or anything like that, but it is now official, and it will release this year on November 11th for PlayStation, PC, and then my go-to platform here being the Nintendo Switch. I really just feel like these tactics RPGs fit perfectly on a handheld console, so I was absolutely thrilled with the inclusion of the Nintendo Switch here. Sadly though, Square Enix continues to be a little bit more random when it comes to Xbox. By this point, I feel like that they're just kind of throwing darts at the board to tell them on whether or not they should release their games on Xbox. But hopefully, in due time, Tactics Ogre Reborn will also come to Xbox as well, because this is viewed as one of the greatest tactics RPGs to ever exist. And actually about that, it does have some welcome improvements, including an updated game design, it has improved graphics and sound, and then also it has voice acting that will make its already rich story even more engrossing. So definitely some cool improvements there, though I think that there are two criticisms with what we've seen so far. I have noticed not everybody is just thrilled with the visual art style here. It does seem like the characters have just kind of been smoothed out, and not everybody likes that over its original pixel art. I guess that really just depends on a person. But then other than that, and this one's coming from me, I don't really like the release date for November 11th. November typically is a very crowded month, so it could easily get buried as November starts to fill out. I mean, we already got both God of War Ragnarok and Pokemon Scarlet and Violet releasing right around the same time frame, so it's stuck between those games. Definitely some tough competition there. Nonetheless, though, fans of this genre are eating very well, especially you fans on the Nintendo Switch. I mean, Triangle Strategy, Digimon Survive, Diofield Chronicles, Mario + Rabbids Sparks of Hope, and now Tactics Ogre Reborn all in the same year. Yeah, definitely fun times. Now, a new patent has also been spotted online that indicates Sony might be working on a new PlayStation 5 DualSense controller, and this is actually really interesting. So in this new patent, it details haptic feedback analog sticks. This will be done through non-Newtonian fluid, which would allow for different levels of resistance depending on what's happening in the game. Think of something like a racing game where it could actually offer resistance depending on the turn and how much grip you have on the road. I think that that's actually a pretty cool idea. And if you've already used the PlayStation 5 DualSense controller, you'll be very familiar with how this works and its triggers and all the unique ways that you can use its resistance springs. That's what we're kind of looking at here as well, and it just looks like Sony's trying to find new ways to incorporate that type of technology to its analog sticks to make for an even more immersive experience. Now, it's always important to keep in mind that when it comes to patents, that doesn't necessarily mean that something will 100% guaranteed just happen, but it is an idea that they're at least exploring. And I really do like that they are. Sony has tried to advance controllers and just evolve them even further this generation, and I think that they've been successful at that so far. The DualSense controller has been a big win for them, and I think that that really shows in something like Astro's Playroom, which really took advantage of all of its different features. I do believe that we'll see a lot more haptic feedback in devices going forward, as a lot of fans do seem to like this technology, and not just from Sony either, but also from other companies as well. Back to these haptic analog sticks though. If they really do incorporate this sometime in the future, whether that be this generation or maybe even next generation, maybe they could put it in a pro controller. I mean, it's hard to tell, but not only could it make for more immersive gameplay, but it could also theoretically solve the increasingly alarming stick drift problems that we've seen pop up here in recent years. Now, there's no guarantee on this solving that type of problem, but it is possible. With all that said though, I do like that Sony's continuing to explore how to improve their controller rather than just kind of being stagnant. Let's go and talk about this new handheld console though that takes advantage of Xbox. I mean, technically with this new device, there will be an Xbox handheld console on the market, and this is something that fans have been dreaming about pretty much since the inception of the Xbox brand. I mean, back in the Xbox 360 days, there was always those jokes about just burning your hands off with a handheld ring of death, but I mean, here we are years later, and it has started to become a little bit more of a reality. There have been some reports that's made their way online claiming that Microsoft has been toying with the idea of a handheld Xbox console that would take advantage of their Xbox game streaming cloud service. And now, that is actually happening. Logitech and Tencent, out of all companies, just announced a brand new partnership where they're working on a cloud-based handheld console, and in their official statement, they mentioned that they're working directly with the Xbox Cloud Gaming and NVIDIA GeForce Now teams to make this all possible. So this isn't necessarily a first-party Xbox handheld, as some may have been theorizing, but they still are working closely with Logitech and Tencent, which makes this device even more interesting. This here might be Microsoft's avenue where they just let third parties take the helms and get all of this up and running for them, which I think that does make sense for them. They're pretty much doing the same thing with xCloud mobile controllers, so I'm not really necessarily too surprised here that they're doing the same thing with a flat-out handheld console. However, with this new Logitech console, because it's not just a device that's being built that just so happens to work with xCloud, but rather because they're working closely together with Microsoft to make sure it's the best overall possible experience that you can have, again, I think that makes this device more interesting and definitely instills more confidence that this will be done right. For that matter, Logitech is a good brand for hardware. They're very experienced when it comes to PC gaming devices. I've always really liked their mice and keyboards, and hopefully they can bring that experience over to a handheld console as well. As for Tencent, they're combining Logitech's hardware experience with their software expertise. So a pretty interesting combination there, and even though they're not saying it just yet, Tencent does have their own streaming service that they've been working on, so I imagine that we might see that incorporated as well. And we all know that Tencent has a lot of different gaming IP as they've acquired a lot of studios, so that will be an aspect worth paying attention to here. All in all though, even though this is a device that's not built to play games locally, I think that there will be a market here, as it is nice to have a dedicated gaming platform as opposed to just using your phone to play cloud games. I know for myself at the very least, even though I've played Xbox games through the cloud on my phone in the past, and I have the Razer Keysea, which is a great mobile controller, I definitely recommend it, but every time I use it, it's just a hassle. I don't really like having to take my case off my phone, then connect to the controller, then it drains my phone battery, and then on top of that, I might get messages that interrupt my overall game experience. It's really just this mixed bag of an experience. So I know for myself, again, at the very least, I would much rather have a dedicated device that I can just pick up and play. And that's why I think a device like this could have a market even if a little bit more niche. Obviously, though, a lot of this will depend on the price and then also your internet connection. If you don't have a 5G router and fast internet, then a device like this is probably not a good idea. As for its price, because it is a cloud-based console, it will be absolutely paramount that they make it affordable. Now, if they come out and they make this like, let's say, $100 to $200, I could see it having some interest. But if they go any further than that, then I think people will just kind of scoff at it and move on. So that price point is going to be very important, and as soon as we get that, of course, I will let you all know. So we'll just kind of see what happens with all that. But just to throw my 2 cents in here, if Xbox really is serious about handheld gaming, because I know that will be one of the most enticing parts about this console, what I personally think that they should do is partner up with Valve and get PC Game Pass working on a Steam Deck right out of the gate. That's the direction that I think that they should take, because I think that that sounds more attractive than just cloud gaming. No, they're not going to make any money off of the hardware, but they could get more subscriptions for PC Game Pass that way. However, back to this Logitech device though, they did say that this device will launch later this year, so we should hear more about it in the coming months, considering there's only like 5 months left. But either way, I would love to hear y'all's thoughts on a console like this. Would you all be willing to purchase a dedicated cloud-based console at the right price? Let me know in the comments below. Now, like I said earlier, Nintendo's been very active this week, as they usually are when it comes to their quarterly reports. But interestingly enough, they did just crush a rumor that's been pretty much ongoing every single year of the Switch's life cycle, and that's about those quote-unquote Switch Pro rumors. I mean, according to some insiders out there, this is a console that was meant to release every single year of the Switch's life cycle. But here we are in 2022, and Nintendo's laying to bed any type of residual rumor that's still floating around. According to a Bloomberg reporter, he posted this over on Twitter. Nick I believe that's how you pronounce it, not 100% sure, but Nick there will be no new Nintendo hardware this fiscal year, which ends in March of 2023. Not immediately clear whether that part of the article is from Nick I's own reporting or what Nintendo president, who Nick interviewed for the story, said. So I guess because there's not really a clear answer on whether or not this was Nick I's reporting or if it was coming from Nintendo's president, you can kind of take this report with a grain of salt, but I really don't see why Nick I would indicate something that they didn't hear themselves. I think if anything, for the time being, don't go in expecting a new Switch device to release this fiscal year for Nintendo, which goes all the way to March of 2023. And I think that that does make sense. I think at the end of the day, Nintendo's obviously working on a new console, as all these console makers always are, and I believe that we do already know some of the features that it will include. It seems very evident by this point that it will include NVIDIA DLSS 2.0, as several leaks have indicated, and we've seen patents out there where Nintendo have been playing around with the idea of machine learning, and I think that that will be a big part of their next device. That immediately will increase image quality, both with resolution as well as with its performance. We've already seen the effects of AI upscaling and how much of an improvement it actually can make, and NVIDIA, well, they are the market leader when it comes to this type of technology. And the cool thing here is that Nintendo is really the only console maker that can take advantage of NVIDIA's AI upscaling, since they're the only one that's using NVIDIA-based hardware. So I do expect that to be heavily incorporated into their next device. At the same time, though, do I expect this device to release within their current fiscal year? And no, I really don't. We just got the Switch OLED last October, and I think that they're happy with how that's performing so far, and I think that that will get us to the eventual Switch successor. You know, we are dealing with that chip shortage still that's affected all of these platforms, so launching a new console in this type of environment is not really ideal either. I mean, yes, we can talk about a Switch Pro and how it's technically not a successor, but I'm really not entirely sure that this is going to happen by this point. I think we've gotten to the point of the generation that Nintendo's just going to prepare for, again, that eventual successor, and I don't think that we're going to hear about that until next year at the earliest. And I'm not even really sure about all of that. I think that there is a very real scenario here where we don't hear about a Switch successor until 2024. The Switch still has a lot of momentum, and they still have plenty of big games coming that can keep those sales going strong. So yeah, for now, those Switch Pro rumors are dead. But we all know how this works. I'm sure another insider soon enough will come online and claim that a Switch Pro is coming sooner rather than later. Whether that's actually accurate or not, that's an entirely different story. But again, we all know how this works. Let me know what you all think about this, though. Do you think that we will see a Switch Pro, or do you think that Nintendo is just going to kind of move on to an eventual Switch successor and not actually a Switch Pro? Let me hear your thoughts in the comments below. Let's go take a look at the poll of the day, though, where I asked you all, now that the Meta Quest 2 increased in price, do you think the cost of the PlayStation 5 or the Xbox Series will also increase? And as you can see here, the majority of you all, the vast majority of you all, does not believe this will happen, with 72% of you saying no, while only 19% of you said yes. Now, I am 100% with you all on this one. As I said the other day, I think that this is the beauty of the console game industry where there's a lot of competition. Because of that competition, I don't think that either Sony or Microsoft can individually raise their price. Because if one raises their price and then the other doesn't, well, that would basically just give the opposing console maker a free victory. It just would not be a smart move unless both were to raise their price together. Now, some of you all did point out something interesting, though, that didn't immediately occur to me, and that's the idea of Xbox and PlayStation introducing a newer console that could maybe include something like increased solid-state drive storage for $50 more. That would actually be a better way for them to do something like this, though if that were to happen, I surely hope they would still keep those standard models around at $500. On one side, I'm never opposed to having more options. I very much welcome that, but I don't want that $550 option to just phase out what we already have. I kind of like what Nintendo is doing with the Switch. Sure, they introduced the Switch OLED for an extra $50, but you can still simply just go out and purchase the standard Switch for $300, as you always could, and then there's also the Switch Lite as well. It really just kind of covers all grounds, and if Xbox and PlayStation want to do something like that, then I think that that's actually a pretty good idea. It's just a matter of how you sweeten the pot, though. Would you be willing to pay that extra $50 for more storage capacity, or could there be another way to sweeten a deal here? I'm trying to think of some ideas here, but nothing's really immediately coming to my mind. Maybe you all can, though, and if you do, let me know your ideas on what could make that extra $50 worth it. For the time being, though, I really don't expect Sony or Microsoft to raise the price of either one of these consoles. Anyways, though, that's it for this episode, but if you liked the video, don't forget to bell notification and subscribe button for more content just like this. Also, if you'd like to support the channel through Patreon, thank you for making this content possible. Peace out.